Hey folks, Steve here with another Pax Romana Scenario 10 video for you. We are going to get into turn one. Um, Obviously, I got to take my time to apologize for the gap since the last video. It has been, gosh, I think it's been like 2 weeks. And it's the usual reason. Life, is just busy and did not afford me the ability to take time away and play games, and that's just the reality sometimes. It's okay, all is well. Otherwise, I guess, and we can try to get back to it. That's the idea. Um, there's a couple of things I want to point out before we jump right in. I just want to call out. There's a bit of an oddity in terms of history, and it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't. It's not a big deal. We talked about like this scenario is probably the most historical. If you really try to turn on all the historical chrome to the maximum degree, it would be this, right? Greece is not a singular power, it's really a collection of city states. Egypt is separate from the East and all this stuff, right? That's all good. The one weird thing is that we have the Pyrrhus of Epirus or Epirus, depending on how you want to pronounce that. We have Pyrrhus here with a big old soldier of fortune army. It's a big stack. I think it comes out to be like 14 or 15 battle points, and it's got a nice mixture of forces. And of course, the leader is really great. He is a 3-4 leader, so he is one of the best on the board, or is the best on the board. Um, in the regular scenario, like 6, which would be the other ultra historical scenario version, with the Greeks being a Greek player rather than a independent power. The first play of the game is a Greek activation marker, and the army of Pyrrhus is controlled by the Greek player, right? Because Pyrrhus came and he supported the Greeks that were in southern Italy, Magna Graecia, right? As it would have been referred to. Um, and fundamentally, in the history, Pyrrhus came, he fought with the Romans some, then he went down to Sicily and he actually fought against the Carthaginians some. And then other stuff happened, and he eventually died for other things going on. But um, the weird thing is, and I wish there was some other way to further modify the scenario to make this a little bit nicer. In scenario 6, the Greek player has that incentive that they can send him to Italy, fight the Romans, fair enough. He could send them, he could follow history and be like, okay, I beat on you enough. I'm going to come down here and beat on the Carthaginians some, just to be a little chaos factor. And as the Greek player, like, yeah, they're your opponents. They're some of your opponents. Maybe a little volatile, right? You might want to use that opportunity to, make friends with somebody and go down and focus on the Carthaginians instead, or whatever. But because in scenario 10, the Greeks are not a power, the game gives the activation of the army to the Carthaginians. So the first activation marker of the game is a purple Carthage marker. You can see that way up in the top right of the screen up here. First activation marker is a purple Carthage one. They have to do the Soldier of Fortune action to activate this army to do stuff, basically. That's the intention. But because it's a Carthaginian player who makes these decisions, they are never, ever, ever, ever going to send this guy down here. It's just not going to happen. There's no reason. He could come down and beat up on the independents. Sure, he could do that. He could even beat up on the Greeks, I guess. I don't think there's anything keeping that from happening, but he is probably more likely just going to send him after Rome. And really, that's fine, right? Like you think about, I think most folks are familiar with like Pyrrhus fighting the Romans. That is something that's sort of well known. And then his campaigns against the Carthaginian forces in Sicily don't get as much attention. So you could probably squeak away with just having these guys focus on Rome, and that's fine. But I don't necessarily like the fact that the Carthaginians get that much of a boost right at the beginning of the game, where They have decent forces, they have a great economy, and they've got Pyrrhus to beat up on the Romans, and they can activate the Greeks if they really want to. Um, and the reason why he might send these guys over here is to weaken them for the Carthaginians to come up and take it over or something. Who knows, right? It's just one of these weird things. And I thought, well, maybe the East player should get to activate. Now that would change the turn order a little bit. Um, or maybe it's just a free, like you give the East a free special activation um, that doesn't use an Eastern activation marker, and they just get to play Soldier of Fortune for free. And then again, it's because it's a 3-player game, Rome, Carthage, and the East. The Eastern player gets to wield this as a weapon, the same way the Carthaginian or the Greek player originally did in scenario 6, where they can beat up on both or either, or whichever one they feel like. So to me, that's a little bit. This could be a balanced thing that if just right out the gate, where the Carthaginians are going to beat up on the Romans with these guys, and then on their own when they activate again. Is that what's going to happen? Who knows? Um, Something to think about, and something I'm a little concerned with, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. I think there were some other things that I had originally thought of back when I recorded the last video that I no longer recall to cover here. My mind has been very far away from this game for the last 2 weeks, unfortunately, so I have to kind of re-engage my brain on some of this stuff. So we'll just have to see how it goes. We've got the cup loaded up. We got everything else, I think, pretty well situated. And so it just comes down to playing the game. Yeah. So with that, and with the intent that we're playing the game, that again, the first activation is a Carthaginian activation. They are considered to have already paid for the activation, so that much is considered already paid out of their talent. And then we have, this is the Soldier of Fortune card, which, if played in any other context, would place a Soldier of Fortune army. And so this is considered to have been played automatically by the Carthaginian player in this version. So the army here represents that. And ultimately, the Carthaginian player is going to use that for their major activation, but they can still use their minor activations. And so as I look at, let's see, must use the major move, its first activation to move that army, and then it'll get its 2 minor, and that's it. Okay. I remembered some of the things that I would have wanted to mention the last time. So this scenario has some special rules. So just to round some of these out, that Civil War is seemingly a little bit easier than the regular rules to happen. So the bigger you are, the more likely for Civil War. The Carthaginians have to pay extra activation markers, or 2 talents per activation mark to activate any leader for a major move outside of the Africa province, once the entire Carthage territory is controlled. So, I mean, that's fine, because they're usually going to be in control of all of the Carthaginian territory. But if the Romans get a force down into Carthage, then things get more expensive for them. And then there's this whole thing with income loss from corruption. So the more money you make, the more you're going to lose. It's like a progressive corruption loss. So it just means that, like, even if you make more money, you don't actually make that much more money. And without turning this into getting a graphics calculator and kind of showing you what that looks like, there's going to be a point where once you're over 30, you really don't make much more money, right? You get some, you get a little bit, but if like your income was 33 and it went up to 50 somehow, the reality is you would only get like 42 talents. I don't know. You can see it here. Like you can work it out, right? It's just once you start getting above 30 talents, it gets a whole lot harder to actually have 30 talents after income reduction. So something to watch out for there. And then there's this whole thing about home province revolt. Now, I tried to work out the math on this, in that basically, if you are controlling a home province territory of another player, there's a chance that there could be a revolt, either a minor revolt or a major revolt. And especially if it's a player power, they can forego an activation marker to force a roll on the home province revolt charts that will quite possibly bring a lot of units into play to sort of liberate the territory. Now, this is kind of a weird thing, and I am sure this is a balance thing, but it doesn't necessarily like. I'm trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out like how realistic is this in terms of history, because obviously what eventually happens in the history is that Rome consolidates control over Italy and does take over a lot of Hispania, as well as Gaul. But for what this matters for this rule, they take all of this. Now, you could look at Numidian revolts and civil war things that happened, um, but it wasn't, eventually Carthage was really put down. And so it is something to try to figure out, like, well, how does this rule really affect the rest of the game? And it's just unclear. Um, what it ends up being is you can spend money to kind of pay off the revolt and keep the revolt from happening. So sort of like trying to pay off the revolt. But the money you get for the territory is very likely not enough to pay for the suppression. So it is a net cost. So to me, it does mean it probably incentivizes the player powers to expand into areas like Gaul, like Hispania, the Danube, rather than to immediately um, like take over a territory like Carthage. But even once you do, there's always this possibility that like Carthage will replenish itself somehow. You get a major revolt, they get control back of their territory, which, I mean, if you do the salting of the earth kind of thing with the Romans and you take over the Sicilies, you get in Africa and you destroy the city of Carthage, you destroy these towns, you do the whole thing, and this would be the incentive to do so, right? Like you just straight up destroy it because you want to get rid of it, and then if there is a Carthaginian revolt in the future, they won't have a city to hide in, right? I guess that's, if you can't hold the city, that would be the reason to do it. So I don't know. It's like this weird thing. Like these home province revolts, are they truly realistic after Rome had already conquered a territory like that? Is it simply a matter of until you totally control an area? Because the game doesn't necessarily really provide a way to save a faction from elimination. Like if you eliminated everything and you lost control of everything and you didn't control anything on the board at all, you're kind of out of the game, I think. This mechanism, these revolts, allows you to use your activation markers if you literally can't do anything else, to revolt and get control back in some of these places, and then you kind of work your way out of a hole. But I think at that point, if you're in that much of a hole, the game's probably already being decided, and you ain't going to be the winner, right? So I don't know. Some weird stuff there. We'll see how much it actually applies. I think the Romans will certainly try to take down Carthage, and then we'll see what happens, or vice versa, right? And then there's a question: do the Romans get revolts against the Greeks and Magna Graecia? I don't think that makes sense to do. I'll have to double check the rules on that. So anyway, this is going to be a long intro, and I always do this. So, but it's all good context before we get the game really underway. So we'll take a look at that in just a second. Okay, as a quick sanity check, based on the reading of the rule, the Romans do not have the ability to get a home revolt here, because the rule seems to stipulate that when a player controls another player's home province that is the case that applies. Control of another player's home province is fraught with danger. It says the controlling player can pay to blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's the way it reads to me, and to me that makes sense. It would seem a little bit cheesy that the Romans would somehow get to have a revolt in territory that they really had not owned. Right? This was Terras and Regium and these areas that just truly had not been controlled by the Romans yet. So it's not home territory really yet. So they will not be able to have a minor revolt there. If the Romans want it, they're going to have to go get it, which necessitating the intervention of Pyrrhus and all of that stuff, right? It seems to make sense. Okay, so got that out of the way. Now we can actually get to moving Pyrrhus of Epirus. I guess the thing about it is we need to decide, I guess, for the Carthaginians, is there any minor moves that they want to make right now to prepare for this? And I could think of some things that they would probably like to do. So, for instance, I think it might be a good idea for them to send a galley from Carthage to Illyria to sort of hold the space a little bit. Let's see, and we do have a galley there. The reason why the Carthaginians would do that is by having a galley over here, we're basically creating a block for any naval Roman activity that they might want to do, because they could try to get into Corsica and then conquer their way down Sardinia as well. It wouldn't necessarily be too difficult for them to do, but if you watch my last series on Pax Romana, I mentioned the galleys end up becoming very important to restrict where your opponent can navally move to hurt you. So if you can put galleys at sort of the choke points of naval movement, that allows you to kind of hold a front where naval movement is really the most efficient way to move in this game. Probably unsurprising, but just the way the movement points work, naval movement is really, really great. So where you can constrain your opponent and can do so safely, it's very valuable to do. So I think I'm going to do that. And then what I'm probably also thinking I want to do is, since we already control these territories, I may want to move some of these guys around a little bit. Because we would like to get into Baetica and expand into another territory and start making ground in Hispania as the Carthaginians. So I'm going to think on that for a second. I kind of need to decide what order. It may not really matter what order I do them in, but if I do the major move first and I make some headway, that might influence what I do with the rest of my actions. Okay, so we did one minor move. We're going to save the other minor move till after, just to kind of see where things stand after Pyrrhus does his thing. The Carthaginians did send a galley, and they went through up to here to Illyria, like I said. And just if you didn't watch other videos in the series and understanding the naval movement, a naval move for just a galley moving by itself can kind of go wherever you can get them to. But whenever they pass through certain areas, they have to temporarily stop and roll to continue to get to wherever it is that they want to be. So they left here, they went to this town, they went to here. Now there's nothing present, but because it's home territory, the Carthaginians control it, which means they're fine. Then they move to this spot, which is a naval transit point. We had to roll a die to see if they could continue. They could. They get here and they don't have to stop. And then the next spot in the journey would be to get basically up here and we could have gone through here or here, or could go straight from here to here. I ended up just doing it. I went here, rolled, was fine, went to here, and we have to roll. So you'd have to roll for this spot and this spot. While Carthage controls the province, they have enough control of the area to have control of the province. Um, they technically don't control the individual space here, which means a unoccupied port that you don't control, even if you control the province. I believe this is the case. Means that you have to do a continuation roll, just like a naval transit point. And so, fortunately for them, they passed all of them to get to Illyria, where they could stop, and they're there with this garrison unit. But again, that blocks the Romans from being able uh, to get very far. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so with the major Carthaginian activation, we will look to activate Pyrrhus. We're going to roll a d6 to see how many movement points. We rolled, just a 1. Plus 4 is 5, so 5 movement points. It's not great. That is not great. Now, the other weird thing is that I'm trying to think through, like, the Soldier of Fortune army is controlled by the Carthaginian player, which means if they move through Greek territory, do they have to concern themselves with various issues that come from that? And I do wonder if that is the case. Yeah, see, they move as if they were their own. So there's sort of this, like, if we don't want to disrupt and attack these Greeks, then I would need to send him up this way. And so I think we'll do that. So we spend 3 movement points to do naval stuff. So that's you're paying to embark, go out to sea, and debark. So we just know there's going to be 3 movement points spent no matter what. And then we would move here and have to roll for stopping. And he's fine. And then we would move here and have to roll to keep from stopping. And that is actually a failure. And so he has to stop moving here. And then he has 2 movement points left. And he's not going to be able to get very far. That's really unfortunate. This is one of those funny things, like, if you don't roll well and you deal with some oddball stuff, I think this is another one of those situations where it's like, oh well, we didn't want to run the risk of attacking the Greeks, but if this was a different game, they probably wouldn't have been affected. The Greeks wouldn't have been affected by the Soldier of Fortune army because the Greek player is moving the Soldier of Fortune army. So the fact, I think it's this weird thing where, like, because the Carthaginians are controlling Pyrrhus in this scenario, maybe it's not. This problem goes away after Pyrrhus goes away, but this turn is funky. It's funky for sure. So with 2 movement points left, what can be done? I think we like having the galley to protect these guys. and there's not, they would basically be able to get over here, which is convenient, but without the galley. So what good does that really do? Oh, actually, okay, that makes sense. So we'll spend the rest of our movement points moving to here, and then the remaining minor move moves the Carthaginian galley back with these guys. That's, well, no, because we already activated that unit. I don't think I can do that. Okay, that's what we'll do, and that'll just have to be good enough. Or not. Indecision. What to do. I do think this is one of those things that you really wish the game afforded some other way to get more movement points that you could try again, or to get further. But yeah. Oh well. Okay. Well, I guess with the remaining activation, we'll roll for uh, we'll roll for this light infantry here. He gets one movement point, and he'll move up to there. And that's it for the Carthaginian activation. So that is done. The next is the East, and there's some special things with that. But first, we'll pay a talent for the East activation. We will draw an event card, and we get, the Conqueror card. If you have an elite leader in play, and choose an expansion operation for this activation marker when you play this card, you may give that leader a major move in addition to the major move they would normally get. This may allow him 2 separate successive major moves. You may not play this card in a game turn in which you already played a Contator card. Is that meant to be another Conqueror card? A Contator card? That's weird. I don't know. Okay, so the East player gets that. That's actually pretty significant. I actually have to go look. Does Seleucus count as an East elite leader? He does not. So a 2/6 is still pretty good. Don't get me wrong. A 2/6 is good. Just not elite good, apparently. Nobody has an elite leader on the board right now. The East elite leader is the 3/5, which is not Seleucus. Technically, this is the leader that you're supposed to use, but because I have the deluxe edition and it comes with a counter that actually says Seleucus on it, Seleucus, however you want to pronounce it, I decided to use that for flavor, for fun, because it's the same value, 2/6. But he is not an elite leader. So we can't make use of the Conqueror card right away. But yeah, you must have an elite leader. So, but this is a very powerful card. This is a card that we did not get to use in the Greco-Persian War scenario because it was going to come in on turn 9 with Alexander the Great. But this is a great card pull for the East. They're going to hold on to that when the time is right. But otherwise, some other, I guess I can move the camera a little bit to help. Some special stuff is going to happen here with the Eastern player. Okay, so with the East activation, the special thing that occurs is that Seleucus can show up in Edessa, Palmyra, or Damascus and be available to activate for doing major moves. We're probably, so what I would like to do is ensure that the Greeks do not have any real ability to operate, I think. So Damascus, I will have him show up in Damascus, and we'll just right away put an Army A marker to denote Seleucus's army. He will be off camera. Here, he has quite a potent force. 5, 6, heavy infantry, 4 light infantry, 2 cav, 1 elephant, and a pretty decent leader. So I'm thinking I'd put him in Damascus, and what we'd like to do is kind of clean up some of the Greeks on our way through here, and then get them headed off probably to Asia Minor. There's a strategic decision to be made as the Seleucids on do we when and how do we invade Egypt. Right now, the forces of the Egyptians um, are pretty potent, all things considered. Like, they're pretty strong, these starting armies. Geez, yeah, no joke. They're all pretty strong, and even our very potent army from Seleucus may not be able to totally conquer Egypt. Um, so maybe for now, we look at conquering areas closer to home, and that would enable us to just get further along effectively. So I think that's what we're going to end up doing. So the first activation, or the first thing we're going to want to do, oh gosh, we have some minor moves. I think we want to do our major move first. So thing is, when we do our first major move, we get 8 talents in the East treasury. So we go from 5 now to 13 talents for the East. So just get a little bump in money. And so what do we want to do? Well, I think we'll go ahead and roll for activation. So he is a 6 leader, so we're going to roll. We get a 1, another 1. Plus 6 is 7. 7 movement points. We're going to spend 1, 2 to go down to 5 to clear this garrison. And then I'm trying to remember, can we force something to happen with that galley? I have to go look it up because I'm not 100% sure. Those galleys will not go away in the removal phase because of the way independent powers work. So what I wonder is there any way I can get rid of them without having a naval battle? That's the tricky thing. I do not know what happens. Let me figure this out. Okay, so in looking at the rules, it sounds like because these Greek galleys are, they're not going to mess with control, but they're not going to go away. Even if I move an army through here, I can't find the space in the rules where it would say, do you force this boat away or anything like that? Like, I really can't find anything. So my assumption is they're not going to be able to do anything more. So what I think we're going to do then is send Seleucus north, and so it's going to be he has 5 movement points left. 1, 2, 3, 3, yes, 4, 5, and enter Cilicia, however you might want to choose to pronounce that. And technically, he takes control of it because there's no one else there at the moment. Now, not the best position to be in the given circumstances, but there you go. So that's the major move, and then I think for the 2 minor moves, what we'll probably want to do is we'll move this guy here, and we'll move this guy here. For now, it might seem like an odd move, but trust me, there's a plan for this as the Eastern player. And in fact, actually, probably gonna. I should think about this for a second. Activate that guy, roll a die. He has enough movement points to get over to here. And then moving this guy, he has enough movement points to get right here, which is just fine and dandy. Okay, all that with a plan in mind. So that's it for the Eastern activation, right? So far, so good, relatively simple stuff. Next are the Romans. We pay 1 talent, and we pull the event card. This is a hold-in card. It's actually a naval ambush. This card may be played against any army using naval transport that moves into a port or naval transport transit point, but not a deep sea transit point, within 3 naval connections of one of your galley squadrons. It basically means we can intercept them and fight them. So there's normally no naval interception. It's very, you're either going to go try to force your way through a navy, or you're going to avoid them. But this is the one instance where you can actually intercept and catch your opponent off guard. So the Romans have that. Now, granted, if I were to actually look on the board, the Romans have no fleet whatsoever at this point in the game. Obviously, during the course of the First Punic War, they would begin to have improvements in their navy, but we're not quite there yet. So nothing there, but now the Romans have to decide what to do. Now they know that yield Pyrrhus is a-coming, and they too have to contend with possible Carthaginian interloping. So they know Pyrrhus is going to keep them on the defensive. They could actually maybe try to spend some money and recruit and beef up their defenses, and that could actually prove to be very valuable to try to do that. So that's something I'm thinking about. Instead of doing an expansion, doing a recruitment action, spending some money, building up some additional defenses, that could help a lot. But I need to think through this. So while the Carthaginian action was very simple, we're using Pyrrhus, and the East was more or less simple. We had some things on our to-do list. We had to bring Seleucus on, and kind of get him positioned to go places and make some gains as they did. The Romans are a tougher thing to decide what to do. So I need to think on that. We'll be right back. Okay, so with the Roman activation, because they start with such a large treasury, they start with 18 talents, I went ahead and did recruitment. And so what I've done is I've created spent 2 talents each for 2 galleys. So 4 talents spent on galleys. I put one here to protect the obvious entry point crossover from Illyria to Italy. Also put one here with this garrison to kind of funnel Pyrrhus's advance path via naval movement a little bit differently. And we're kind of positioned, only the Roman player knows this, but they can do the naval invasion, or the naval interception that I mentioned. They're actually equipped to do so. They built galleys. They now have a naval fleet, a fleet to actually do that, one on each side of the peninsula to kind of help defend. I'd like to build more over time, but we also want to prep for land improvements. So we built another legion here, another legion in Rome, and a legion out here. So altogether, that's 10 talents worth of production, and it's quite a lot, but so it brings us down to 7 talents because we spent 1 for activation marker. That leaves us with just a few talents to spend for the activation markers left, and then we've got a little bit of left over. It's kind of freestanding floating money that we may need to spend to improve our towns to cities or create new towns. We're going to have to kind of figure out how soon we want to do that. But it made sense to try to build up some forces. Now, the one tricky thing is we've created a circumstance where we have a lot of legions and heavy infantry, more than our civilization points. So we kind of have to figure out how we're going to address that later, but I'm assuming some of our legions will die, so that might not be as bad as we might think it will be. But we'll see. We could build some more towns. We could try to build, improve to a city in a couple of places if we can fend off Pyrrhus. I think the main thing is we need to fend off Pyrrhus. If we can do that, that gives us an opportunity to consolidate a little bit. Pyrrhus is so strong, we really have to be careful and protect ourselves appropriately. But that's it for all the initial activation markers. So from here, the chips are all in the cup, and there is still, I believe, one Greek activation marker that the Carthaginian player will get to use to activate Greek units. Seems unfair that the Carthage gets that advantage there, but it is what it is. So we'll go and we'll pull from the cup, and one thing before I pull that, because the East captured a territory, I believe their stability goes up by 1. I believe that to be the case. I should probably double check that. This was from the Seleucid movement that occurred prior. Make sure I get. It's worth double checking because this could become important. Each non-home province over which she gains control the instant he does. So yeah, okay. So it did go up, but okay. So we took care of that. We will pull the next chit, and we get Rome. We get Rome again. So that's useful. Romans will pay their 1 talent for the activation. They will pull another event card, and this is the Archimedes effect. Place the inventor marker in any space with a city for the remainder of the current game turn. That marker gives a 2 battle die roll shift to the defender in any battle involving the city wall points in that space. Interesting. So Archimedes apparently moved. He changed neighborhoods from Syracuse to Rome, because that is where that would have to go. Place the inventor marker. I'm sure that I have that marker laying around here somewhere. Somewhere I do. Let's see, inventor. Okay, here it is. So it's just a black counter that says inventor on it. That's it. So hold in hand. So do we hold on to it? We have to play it in a city, so it would have to be Rome for the Romans, and they would get it for the rest of the turn. So maybe we hold on to this. We don't play it right away. We'll see where Pyrrhus ends up. That's a pretty strong card. It's a useful card that we could use for sure. So we'll hold on to that for the moment. But now the Romans get to take an action. So we know Pyrrhus is coming. It might behoove us to try to make some changes or improvements around here and knock down Magna Graecia a little bit. So I need to think on this. There's a lot of different options feasible for the Romans at this point. The buildup of forces certainly allows them to entertain an idea to liberate southern Italy from the Greek control. That would be a good thing to try for, but it would put us in a dangerous position when it comes to the presence of Pyrrhus still looming. So I'll think on this. We'll come back and execute. Okay, so for better or for worse, the Romans have taken a risky gambit. It's paid off, but the rest of the turn could go pear-shaped for them pretty quickly, unless they're too careful. So thinking to themselves, well, hey, we've got a pretty good defense with the naval. We're thinking we're pretty good. We may be able to stop Pyrrhus from getting into Italy. Why don't we clear out Magna Graecia? Why don't we go on a grand campaign to clear Magna Graecia? And we did just that. So with the minor moves, the two legions that were stationed in Capua each individually moved out and returned home after eliminating the Greek garrisons in Italia and Magna Graecia, all except for the city and the one garrison here. The army that was in Rome left one legion behind and quickly maneuvered down and fought a combat against the city of Tarentum. Tarentum. And what was really interesting is that the forces of the Greeks were one cavalry, one infantry, and then the city itself, which provided altogether 7 battle points. The Romans had 16, so they had 2 shifts for the ratio. They had 2 shifts for the leader, and then because we were fighting the siege battle, the cavalry really didn't matter. So I guess it should have been maybe down to 16 to 6. The result was the same. I had rolled a 6 and a 1, so a 6 for the Romans, a 1 for the Greeks, so it doesn't get any worse than that. With their 3-4 shifts, they knocked this down, bumped this up to a 9. I thought it was an 8, but I forgot about the cavalry not counting, so it was actually a 9. So a 90% loss to the forces that were here. Basically, had it been any other result, it could have been a little bit different. They just completely annihilated the Greeks. They took the city, though the walls are all taken down, so the city's not very useful at the moment. And then with some remaining movement points, they took out the last garrison. So this provides ownership of Bruttium to the Romans again, so they get another province control. They gain control of their home territory, and basically they're bumped up in terms of their morale a great deal. In fact, their stability is maximum for this. So that's where they end their activation. They didn't have enough movement points to go back to Bruttium or Tarentum or even go back to Rome. So they're a little spread out, which is the dangerous thing. Pyrrhus could do a lot of damage, but the bright side here is that Italy is in pretty good shape to begin operations and defend themselves well. So they're taking some risk to have a much greater position later in the game. So what's really going to matter is the next chip we pull, which it is time to do so. So going to the cup, we get another Roman activation. We actually can't do that because you can't have 3 activations in a row. So we have to go back to the cup and we pull a Greek activation. Okay, so in this case, the Greek activation has to be, I believe, a Greek stack activated by the Carthaginians, but I need to go double check that. Okay, so with the Greek activation, it can only be used by Carthage to control Greek units. And because this is not a player power, I don't think you draw an event card. That's how I read it. It would be kind of unfair if the Carthaginian player would get to have a card for a Greek activation. So if we still just play it up, the Greeks, and Greeks only, no Carthage units, no soldiers of fortune either, can do the 2 minors and a major. Now, this provides the Carthaginian player an opportunity to contest and fight off the Eastern player. So where, obviously, Carthage is dealing with the Roman player a lot, the Roman faction, and Egypt is nearby, but kind of far away to do much. This provides that ability to contest what the Eastern player is doing. Now, you might say, well, surely the Greeks could focus in on the Romans, and they could try to fight to take Magna Graecia back. But if we move a big army over there, we're going to cede Asia Minor to the Eastern player, and the Eastern player is going to have a free-for-all to kind of get out and cause a bunch of havoc. So it's a question of where do you send the Greeks, and to what degree do you project power? So my first thought process is to do a minor move with a boat and have these guys go here. They can do that. They can go around. That's just to fend off the Romans and to provide a path into Magna Graecia if the Greeks wanted to. Ultimately, the Carthaginians would rather be up here than maybe the Greeks, but they can put that there. With another minor move, this guy can join up with this army. And then with the major move, if we select these guys here, get 3 movement points. That is enough for us to leave 1 galley behind to go somewhere via a naval move. And I think the best thing we could do is end up, I want to say right here, so that in the future we could use a Carthaginian activation to activate the Greeks to contest the East. So not a huge, well, I guess, okay, 3 plus 5 is actually 8. So that would give us 5. And then what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we end up in Iconium. I think that's a fair space to land the Greeks. You could see that as a posture against the East to let them know that they're not totally uncontested. Now, I'm not playing with the optional attrition rule that will make you take attrition in the mountains, just because I think there's so few spaces anyway that seems kind of extreme to worry about, but maybe that'll come back and bite us. Okay, so that's the Greek activation. Pretty straightforward. Just positioning things well so that Greece is something that the East has to contend with, and it isn't a free-for-all easy thing for the East to make use of. We are now going to go to the cup, and we pull Carthage. So Carthage could choose to activate one of their own armies. They could activate a Greek army. They could activate the Soldiers of Fortune. I do think it probably makes the most sense to activate the Soldiers of Fortune. In this case, right, they want to damage the Romans. And the thing is, these guys go away next turn. So it's a use them or lose them. If we don't use them, then whatever good they could ride is lost. If we use our own Carthaginian units to do stuff, well, they may take damage. They may get hurt. We can deal a lot of damage with Pyrrhus before he goes away. They'll pull an event card, and is Famine and Drought. So we roll a d6 and consult. So for that, I got a chart here. Roll a die. We roll a 3. It is the East. So, okay. Okay, reduce the stability of the player who controls that territory by 1. So, in this case, the Eastern player has their stability knocked down by 1. Not a big deal. Nothing too crazy, but there you go. Okay, so now the Carthaginian player has to act. Again, could do some minor moves, and what I think we'll do is we'll have this unit do a minor move. Gets 5. We'll try to do some naval moves for 3. Let's see if he's good to go. gets to here, gets to there, he's good to go, and ends his move right here. And so that's 3 moves, and then let's see, do we want to do anything else there? I don't think we get control for just the 1 unit there. We need more than half, I believe, for that to count for control. So let's see. More than half, yeah, more than half. So I think we could break down to 2. Well, I don't know. I think maybe we leave these guys here for now. So that's 1 activation. And then with another one of our activations, I think we have 1 movement point. Move this guy up to here. And then for the major move, we will move Pyrrhus. And that's not great. So he gets 6 movement points. So this is where the Roman naval card is going to come into play, because as soon as the Pyrrhus army is going to, it's like I have to play split brain, right? Pyrrhus is going to leave port. He's from the Danube. He's going to try to make his way into Italy, and the Roman player will unveil that card, and there'll probably be some sort of naval battle, which could prove disastrous for Pyrrhus. We'll have to see. Either that, or he tries to go the long way around. But I think this player is thinking, no, I can do a naval move up to here, over to here, over to here, and then go for Rome. The Carthaginian player does not know that the Roman player has the naval interception card. So that's how I would play it. Let me just make sure I read the rules right, and we'll see what happens with it. Okay, so how this is going to work, I had to double check the rules. So with the 6 movement points that the Carthaginians have, they're going to say, first of all, yes, we are going to do naval movement, and their thought is, well, we'd like to come through here, and if we get 3 movement points to here, that gives us enough to go 4, 5, 6, and get 1 attack on Rome and probably take it, right? That's they have enough movement points to try to take Rome, and if they do, and reading the rules, it actually becomes owned by Carthage. So it's certainly an advantageous move that they want to take, right? So what they do is they're spending their 3 movement points for naval movement. They're going to go here, and they will have to roll for continuation. And they just barely make it. And it is when they go to here that I think in the transit spot, we would have them get intercepted. And as I read the rules, I think there's a roll that is supposed to take place once you move into a transit point to see if you get blown off course. I don't know if that happens now or not. It would seem to be, I guess we would roll this. We're going to roll this first. So they would get to keep moving, but now the Roman player says, aha, I am going to play a naval ambush. And so as a part of that, this galley comes into here, and I believe that forces a naval combat. That is how I read the situation. Now, if that group was traveling without an escort, then the entire army would be destroyed by the galleys. But I believe, because they have a galley escort, That is just forces a naval combat, which is not as good as the other, obviously, but that's the way it's going to rumble. So, to resolve a naval battle, each player totals his battle points and adds the roll of one die. You get 2 battle points for each galley squadron. There's 1 each. You get 1 BP for a leader with the fleet. So the Carthaginians, Pyrrhus gets another one. So this is actually a disadvantage for the Romans, but we'll see. So first roll for the Romans. Oh, they rolled a 6. So they have an 8. And roll for the Epirotes. Oh, well, there you go. They actually get also an 8. Two for the 2 for the galley and 1 for the leader. So what's a draw look like? Both totals are the same. There is no winner. Both fleets lose nothing and remain in the naval transit point. The active fleet is stopped and must roll for continuity to move again. If it does move, the non-active player has the option to initiate a naval battle as it begins movement. Okay, so I think we do want to try. So we're going to roll for continuity, and we fail. So these guys are stuck here, at least until another activation occurs. So it seems a little weird. Okay, yeah. So this is the same right there. That's it. That's the end of the Pyrrhus's activation. It seems like they failed and have to stop moving, and that was 3 movement points, but they can't do anything else, as far as I can tell. Trying to see if there's anything else they can do. Okay, yeah, it's finished. It stays in the NTP. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that matters here. It just sounds like they stop in place. So that's it for the Carthaginian activation. So not as much occurred as probably would have liked to have occurred, I guess. So yeah, that's it. The Carthaginians still have 1 more activation marker, so that they'll obviously try to do something there. We'll go back to the cup, and we get Carthaginian marker. Okay, well, what can be done with this? Well, first they'll pay their talent. They will pull a card. They get a naval ambush card. Nobody knows that but them, but such is life. And so, what can they do here? Yeah, this is kind of tough. What they could do is try to take out this. Oh, boy, yeah, this is tough. I think what they'll do, they'll activate Pyrrhus because they would like to keep moving. So they have 7 movement points, and because they want to move, the non-facing player can force a combat. So we will have another naval combat here, I think. Actually, let me make sure I read that right, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I think I got this right. If you start in a naval spot, and your opponent has galleys there, they can force a combat. Doesn't necessarily matter where it is. If it's in a port or whatever, they're stuck in a port with you, then this happens if you want to try to move navally through there. So it doesn't matter which direction Pyrrhus would want to go. This is the way it's got to be. So we'll roll first for the Romans. They got a 7. It's quite good. And then the Soldiers of Fortune. Ooh, roll the 1. So that is bad. And in fact, this might be the death of Pyrrhus, which would be a coup for the Romans, that's for sure. All right, let me see what's up. The player with the highest total is the winner. Both sides have the same battle point. Okay, so just to make sure, 3, 7 to 4, difference is 3. Okay. The loser eliminates BP at least equal to the difference, which means that the Carthaginian galley is totally destroyed, which leaves these guys without anything. The winner rolls a die and actually is destroyed as well. And then okay, transported armies and naval battles. Armies being transported have no effect on naval battle. A fleet without galley squadrons may not withdraw. Well, when it moves and it occupies. Naval transport fleet with galley squadrons engaged in naval battle loses land combat unit BP equal to twice the number of galleys lost. If all galley squadrons in the naval transport fleet are eliminated, all transported land units are also eliminated along with any leaders. Wow. Okay, well, that means... Beep. Now, here's the thing. I should point this out. This seems like a wild thing to happen, right? You have the whole Pyrrhus army attempting to cross over. If this gets back to the weirdness between Carthage controlling and Greece being the way it is, that like the Carthaginians can attack the Greeks if they want to. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. They're an independent power. But so too, the Soldier of Fortune army would attack the Greeks if they went in there. Now, if you were a Greek player, if you're playing scenario 5 or 6 and the Greek player controlled Pyrrhus, your best choice, which I think was the historical one, which is they crossed into Magna Graecia and worked their way up the boot, I think. I have to look at the campaign maps for the Pyrrhic War, but I think that's what happened. Here, because they were controlled by Carthage, and it's sort of this weird ahistorical situation where there's no tension between the Greek and the Carthaginian player, Pyrrhus kind of, if they didn't want to mess with the Greeks at all, had to go up this way, but was maybe a quicker, easier path to get in the Romans' back door. If I had not drawn the naval ambush, then they would have, and they probably could have taken Rome. But the Romans, I mean, this is one of those things. I'm playing myself, so I have to pretend as I play each faction that I don't know the other player has the card that they have. And so you just say, well, what would they have tried to do? What was the most straightforward thing? Well, yeah, they had just enough movement points to attempt an attack on a under-defended Rome. Now, there could have been interceptions and avoidance of combat to some degree there, but they had a pretty great shot at taking Rome with Pyrrhus's army. But that naval ambush and in the close, I mean, the Carthaginians, not the Carthaginians, I guess, but Pyrrhus had the advantage, but the die roll just came up funny for them, and they got eliminated. This huge, gigantic army of Pyrrhus is now sunk into the Adriatic. And so there you go. That's it. the soldier of fortune, elephants can't swim. Not good. So that leaves the Carthaginians with some minor moves, and I think with one of them, they're going to try and just press their luck and see if they can't take out the Roman naval unit there. So rolling for the Carthaginians. Okay, well, that's fail on fail. Okay, well, Carthaginians are unhappy. They just had their naval attempt against here fail, and the Romans survive. So they couldn't even take the Romans down with them. And they have one more minor activation. Oh, man. I think what they're going to do... Yikes, this is such a pain in the butt. I think what they're going to do is they're going to split this guy into garrisons, because they're going to eventually want to build a town over in Baetica. For sure they want to do that, and if they had not gotten greedy, they might have been a little bit better able to do that. So there you go. Okay, that's it for the Carthaginians. Go to the cup again, and there goes the Roman activation. The Eastern player has not gotten to do anything for a while. They feel kind of sad. Romans pay their talent. They draw a card. They get, the cunctator. There is a cunctator card. Is an anglicized version of the Latin word for someone proficient at delaying. Oh, Fabian tactics. Playing this card allows you to withdraw from land battle an unlimited number of times during the game turn without suffering the stability for withdrawing. Okay, so this is the second Punic War card for Fabian tactics. Cool. They're going to hold on to that for certain. And now the Romans have to decide what they want to do. Well, they have effectively removed, via just remarkable fortune, they've kicked the Greeks out of Magna Graecia. Pyrrhus lies at the bottom of the Adriatic. They have a moment to breathe and have had good fortune, and I think it behooves them to try some important improvements to the general area that they have. So I'll think on this. I don't think they're going to attack anyone. I think they're going to use this time and pause far away from any Carthaginian or Greek activations. They're free for the rest of the turn. The rest of the activations are going to be the East player. They're going to do some city building, I think, city or town building, and slight movement to accommodate that. So that's the intention here. We'll see how that works out. Okay, Roman activation is complete. They spent out the rest of their treasury. They repaired Tarentum. They turned Capua into a city, and they used their major activation to move through, dropped off a guy, and went back to Rome to protect the capital. So actually sitting pretty good, all things considered. Now, would have liked, if I had more money, be looking at turning some of these garrisons into towns, but huge leap forward in terms of the civilization points. The 3 cities, I mean, that's quite good. That is quite good, actually. 3 full cities is pretty great. Pretty great indeed. So yeah, they're feeling happy. And I mean, they're broke, but they shouldn't need any money for anything right now, I don't think. So they should be okay. So now we're going to go to the cup. It's really just, 2 east markers. So first east marker is up. Each player spends a talent, draws their card, and is bounteous harvests. So we will roll a die and see what we get. Rolled a 5 and a 5 on that particular chart is Carthage. So Carthage gets stability, which is just as well. And then the eastern player gets their activations. Now they're kind of in an oddball place. They need to do some more expansion. They know that they're going to have to potentially contend with this Greek army out here. And it's a question of, do they try to take them now or not? It's 10 combat strength versus a lot more on the on this side, I guess, is the key thing. So what they could actually do, and I think this might actually be a good idea. They could, well, yeah. I need to think through this for a second. They might actually do a recruitment over here, because what they want to do, because they're going last and they can kind of just decide how they want to operate, they could recruit, get situated over here, and then use a second activation to do some expansion. And the reason why they would maybe want to do the recruitment is that they can recruit, get some units on the board, then on their second activation, spend money, turn towns into cities, and then have Seleucus go and take some more of Asia Minor. That actually might be the best path. They can just get some stuff quickly on the board, get situated, get some instant turnaround, and sort of be in good shape. And in addition, keep the Roman player from winning out on civ points by tying them. That's probably the best move here. So let me go ahead and take care of that, and we'll show the aftermath in just a second. Okay, just to show what they did with their recruitment action, they spent a total of 5 talents from their pool of 12 after paying for their activation to build heavy infantry here, and a light infantry just for extra defense purposes. We don't want to spend any more, because in the next activation, we will spend 1 talent to pay for our marker, and then we'll have 6 talents left. That will be enough to turn these heavy infantries and towns into cities, thus getting us 3 total cities, because we still have Antioch. So this is a really welcome change from the last scenario I played, where the East, because we were showing a pre-Hellenic East, I guess is the way to look at it. They couldn't recruit heavy infantry, but heavy infantry is part of the East. I mean, technically, okay, this is not part of the East, but the heavy infantry, light infantry, cav, elephant recruitment capability still applies to the Seleucid Empire, and so they can recruit heavy infantry, hoplites, because remember, this is the Hellenized East, the Seleucid Empire, however you want to do that. Okay, so then we just go to the last activation marker, which is an East marker. They spend their talent. We draw a card. Tribal Resurgence. Draw randomly and blindly 2 tribal counters from those not in play and place each one in any unoccupied tribal space. If only one unoccupied, place only one. If not available, discard. Okay. No one has removed any tribes, so tribal resurgence doesn't matter. So then, for the actual play this turn, they will spend out the rest of their talents, turning Damascus into a city and turning Jerusalem into a city, sacrificing the 2 heavy infantry. Now you might say, well, hey, you just lost out on stuff. Well, the nice thing is, now we're going to have the right number of civ points to keep the Romans from gaining an advantage. So that's some goodness for them. And then we still have a major activation. And so I think what we probably want to do is activate Seleucus. So we'll do that. And he will have 9 movement points. pretty good, and we need to decide what to do with them. Now, my first thought is we also want to make sure we increase our provinces controlled, because as of right now, we have what? One, two, three provinces controlled, I want to say. I have to double check to see if I miscounted somewhere. Because I think it's just 1, 2, 3 right now. And then Carthage has a lot. It's going to be hard to beat Carthage for those points, but they would like to beat out the Romans, and so they need to ideally take control of at least one more province just to be in pretty good shape for GOP. So they can do that by coming up into Cappadocia and to Pontus. So I think that's what they're going to try to do. So let me do this off camera and just kind of see what makes the most sense to make this happen for the East. Okay, we have a little bit of drama underway here. This has to do with the Seleucid leader's activity. So he rolled high, he moved up here, dropped off a garrison, technically controls Cappadocia because he's the only one there. So he gains control. Same thing with Asia Minor, leaving behind a garrison. Then he swung through here, dropped a, I guess I'll mark the combat hex like so. Actually moved through here after dropping off a garrison. Was no interception made, but came over to Lycia and dropped a garrison, which gives control to the east, and then wanted to move back because he knew that the Greek army was a threat. The Greek army actually managed to intercept and came down and intercepted him. So what we have is a battle here. The Greeks have their 2-5 leader. Seleucids have their 2-6 leader. 3 heavy infantry and a light infantry versus 5-6 heavy infantry, a whole lot. Now, the thing about this Greek army is it was intended to slow down the East player and maybe chip away at the large army that Seleucus brought from the East. So even, this doesn't hurt Carthage, but it allows Carthage, via their control of Greece, to try to slow down the Eastern juggernaut here. So let's figure out what the combat shifts look like for this. The leaders are the same, so nothing too crazy there. There is cavalry supremacy in that they have 2 cavalry on the wings. I was being cute. I set this up like a battle would. Now they have elephants, but I don't think the Seleucids are going to use the elephants. I think they can hold them in reserve, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. It's probably worth validating. 10.4. Let's see. Okay, he's not going to commit elephants. I don't think it's worth it because there's a potential for this to backfire on them, and I do not think we want to bother with that. Hold them in reserve, it's fine. So they have 2 more cavalry than the Greeks, so that is 3 shifts. Leaders are same shift, and then it's ultimately 22 combat factors to 10, which is 2 shifts for that. So altogether, 5 shifts, which is probably very good for the East. So we'll roll for Greeks. They rolled a 1, which, okay, so this will just be a bloodbath versus a 2. Well, if they have 5 shifts, they'll spend 1 removing that and then bumping this up to 6. And so 60% of 10 is obviously 6. And I think, let's see, it's got to go 1. Let's see, if they've got to lose 6. Lose. I think the way they can do this is they're going to lose 3 there, 4, 5, 6, and then these guys retreat back to here. So yeah, the East not hurt at all by that particular combat. So they're really still in quite good shape. And that's really the end of their activation, but they managed to pick up, honestly, quite a lot in terms of gains. So you figure out of here, they picked up 3 more provinces. They don't control Asia Minor, but they did get more cities. So really, they're probably sitting pretty good, all things considered. Yeah, 3 more provinces, which is going to be 3 more gold. And they've got some more cities, which is more gold, and they'll be better able to recruit units. So I think the East is pretty happy. The one thing I would have wanted to do was build some galleys and try to force these Greek galleys out, because it makes it really hard to begin even thinking about heading south against Egypt. We need to clear the naval ways so that the East can get into Cyprus and just kind of consolidate control at Cyprus, and then be able to race down the coast here to fight it out with Egypt eventually. So that's as good as we're going to get that, I think. Okay, so that is the end of the activations. So now we would have the attrition and isolation phase. I am quite certain that everyone else, in terms of isolation, is safe. Pretty sure, yeah. I think everyone's safe. Not, these guys don't go away because they're independent, so the Greek stuff doesn't matter. And then we got the victory phase. So I'm going to need to go off camera and quick just do all the calculations, but we'll come back and talk through the results of the turn. Okay, so let's tally up the victory points here, looking at section 15 of the rules. Reminder again that objective markers can be purchased. We just haven't gotten to that point yet where, depending on what the powers purchase, they could get extra GOP victory points or whatnot if they manage to achieve their secret objectives. But none of those are really in play yet. No one's purchased any. So for now, it's just what's on the board is what we ended up getting. So first we'll look at GOP and who has the most GOP. So you get GOP, these are geographic objective points. For each province that you control, not in a barbarian territory is the gray stuff. So the brown, like the Danube, is in play, and so is Germania, but not Sarmatia, Sarmatia or Scythia or Armenia or the German tribes. So yeah, you get 1 point for each province you control, not in a barbarian territory. That includes your home provinces. You get 1 GOP for each territory controlled that is not your home territory. So meaning controlling an entire region of provinces, you would get a little extra bonus for that. You might get some for those opportunity objectives, which again, no one has yet. But you don't get any GOP for controlling your territory that is your home territory. So no big deal there. Should also say, I forgot again, the East stability went up by a couple for gaining control of territory. Okay, so what's the count for GOP right now? Well, the East currently has 6, and I fouled up. I mentioned taking Cyprus. The East player already has control of Cyprus. Even though these independent galleys are present, that does not affect control, apparently. So they never go away, but the Eastern player, the Seleucids, will still get the benefits of that, apparently. So they have, for GOP, 1 province, 2 province, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 geographic points. The Romans have 3 for just the control of their 3 provinces, which is not very much. The Carthaginians have 7, 4 for all of the Carthage area, and then 1 each for Western Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica, which they retained control of. That gives them 7 GOP. So when we look at that, and remember, Greece doesn't count. It doesn't count for anything. You don't count those in for the Carthaginian player, I do not believe. They're totally independent power. They don't get victory points, not even worth tracking anything there. I'll have to see if they get to build anything during the build phase, but I don't think that's the case. So we get 7 victory points for the player with the most GOP. So just ahead by a hair, the Carthaginians get 7 victory points for GOP. They just managed to have 1 more than the Eastern player, which I don't think there's much that the Eastern player could have done. Maybe if they had moved more, but I think getting those cities was important. 4 victory points for the player with the second most. Now, as I'm looking at this, I do wonder, were there any rules that I missed related to victory points that I need to double check? I do not see any special rules specific to that. Yes, I don't see any. So this is, everyone's going to get some victory points every turn. The way this ends up working is the person who's last would get 0, or I guess, well, actually no, the player with the lowest, which could still be the third most. Gee whiz, how's that work? That's weird. Well, okay, so I'll just process this down the chain. So, player with the most GOP was Carthage. They get 7 victory points. Player with the second most is the East. They get 4 victory points. So we'll put 4 victory points there. The player with the third most is Rome, and they get 2 victory points. So we'll give them 2 victory points. And then 0 VP for the player with the lowest. So both cases apply. So why not apply both? I don't know. The rules do not provide anything distinct there. Yeah, I do not see anything that really clarifies that, if that's the case, or how to do this with a 3-player game. I know in the scenario from C3I that I played last time, they changed the victory point rules so that you could set that up correctly. So I don't know. We'll do it. We'll keep it competitive. All right. So then we have civilization points. So who's got the most civilization points? Well, as it happens, the East has 9 civilization points. These points are counted for each full strength town, 3 for each full strength city, and then reduced values get you reduced civ points. So the East has 3 cities. That's 9 civ points. The Romans have 3 cities, and so thus 9 civ points. And then finally, the Carthaginian has 1 city, 2 towns. They didn't have enough time to do more with their activations. They got tunnel vision, activating other stuff, it seems like, apparently. And so that tunnel vision of Pyrrhus really slowed them down. They only have 5 civ points. So we get, for victory points for civ are earned as follows: 5 for the player with the most civ points. If players are tied this in CVP, total the VP award for their positions on the GOP scale and divide evenly, rounding down fractions. Thus a tie for third. Okay, so this is interesting. I gotta look at this and make sure I understand it. A 3-way tie for first. Interesting. Okay, so what this means is that wow. Okay, so all right, so it's a first the player with the most civ points gets 5. Player with the second most gets 3. Because there's a tie for first, you would add 5 and 3 to get 8, and then divide evenly. So each player there gets 4 victory points. So Rome gets 4 and goes up to 6. The East gets 4 and goes up to 8. And then the Carthaginian player would get 1 for the third most or the lowest. So it is currently a tied game of victory points. I'll show you on the track. Again, the whole thing versus third versus last to me doesn't really matter as much, but you got to watch out for how that impacts the game, I guess. But 8 victory points for Carthage, 8 for the East, 6 for Rome. So Rome is behind a little bit. Then we also have to take into account the end of turn stability impacts. So okay, ties. So because the Seleucid Empire and Carthage tied for victory points gained this turn, no one gets a stability bonus. But Rome, being the player who gained the fewest victory points than any other player, loses a stability. So they go down to 7. And sorry, I just kicked the camera. Okay, so there we have it. We are at the end. Then the final thing would be play ordered termination phase, which the power with the fewest VP goes first. Oh, this is amusing. So in terms of who's going to go first here, Rome will go first. And then you would go and look at the power with the second fewest VPs go second. But in the case of a tie, lower stability goes first, but Carthage and the East have the same stability. If still tied, the lower CVP total goes first, which means that is Carthage, and then the East, and then the rest of the activation markers will go into the cup. So there you have it, guys. A full turn of the full historical scenario 10. Again, to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the video, there's some oddity in the Purists being controlled by Carthage rather than Greece that goofs things up a little tiny bit. But now that Pyrrhus is gone, and he would be gone on turn 2 anyway because you remove his army at the beginning of turn 2, once you're past that first turn hump, it's done. So far, I think Rome got very, very, very lucky. The fact that they were able to stay competitive on civ points means that they're still quite in the game, only a few victory points behind. And they're well positioned to expand from there and sort of take the fight to the Carthaginians directly. The Carthaginians kind of got shafted because they lost Pyrrhus. They spent all their activations trying to make Pyrrhus happen, to actually do stuff with him, all for naught, which means while they are set up to expand into southern Hispania, they didn't have enough activations to build any towns or improve cities or anything to sort of gain some competitiveness in civ points. They're still behind. So a late start for them, really, but they are cushioned by the fact that they start with control of most of the Sicilies. Their real objective is to try to take East Sicily to complete their control of the region, but obviously now they're going to have to contest with a growing, more powerful Rome that grows by the day. The Eastern player is off to a pretty good start. They've invested in some cities. They have a decent-sized army that won a combat and took no losses. They can focus on building up a navy to clear the Greeks. They can look to continue to expand into Asia Minor, or alternatively, look to strike into Egypt at some point, they do have to be careful. It's possible for Egypt to activate and attack them. So it's a problem they will have to address. And right now, the Greek forces to stop the expansion in Asia Minor just got kicked pretty hard. So I think the East players feeling pretty good. Really, all the players for all the, Rome came out well. So even though they're behind, they feel comfortable with where things are at. They didn't lose anything. They're actually in pretty great shape. They gained a lot. Carthage probably feels bad because they couldn't do much with Pyrrhus, but they started off on a good foot in terms of controlling the Sicilies, so not much there. And I think the East player has plenty to be happy about in terms of their basic footing in the game. So, all things told, I think we're actually in pretty good shape for the game. Now, the one last thing is the player, if you have more than one, uh, you have more than one card, I believe you have to discard down to one card. I have to go look. Just double check that real quick right now. Okay, yeah, one card which can retain in hand. So the Roman player has to decide that they want to give up the Contator card or Archimedes. Well, this card was going to be more important because we thought Rome would be under direct threat. Seems like that isn't necessarily the case, where this could prove very valuable as an active defense outside of Rome. So I think we're going to hold on to this Contator card, and we're going to give up the Archimedes effect as Rome. So there we go. The deck will be reshuffled for turn 2. But that's it for turn 1, guys. I realize this is a super long video, as it usually is, but future videos will go more quickly, I hope. I think we're off to a good start. I'm very much interested in to see how this plays out. It'll be interesting to see once the Roman Legion cavalry roll takes effect on, I think it's turn 3, certainly not turn 1. But we'll have to keep an eye on the special rules, because I'm trying to play with all the relevant special rules that make for a bigger, crazier game. And so far, so good. A lot to see, a lot to experience yet. So see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it if you watched the whole video. If not, and just click through, hey, it's all good stuff to me. Appreciate you spending the time here with me. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Keep gaming.